Head coach Mike McCarthy has called out some players after Sunday's loss to the New Orleans Saints. It doesn't get much easier next week against Baltimore. It's going to be a big test, and Mike McCarthy hopes that his players are up for the challenge. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Cowboys Digest. Welcome in, everybody, to Cowboys Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, and today we'll be breaking down the post-game comments from head coach Mike McCarthy following the 44-19 blowout loss at the hands of the New Orleans Saints at Jerry's World in Arlington. I mean, it was a total disaster after such a great performance in Week 1 against the Cleveland Browns. We were expecting them to come out guns blazing and really set the tone at home, and it was anything but that. Derek Carr and the Saints just ran all over them and did pretty much whatever they wanted to the Dallas Cowboys defense. They could not establish a rhythm whatsoever, and it was shown in that scoreline. But before we get into the video, I want to let you know that around 85% of you who are watching these videos are not subscribed. So go ahead and smash that subscribe button. It means the world to me. It allows the channel to grow, and it allows me to make daily content, daily Cowboys content for each and every one of you viewers out there. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button. It means the world to me, and it's free. It doesn't cost you guys anything, so go ahead and do that. But let's take a look at some of the post-game comments from head coach Mike McCarthy yesterday. "We need to be better in this week's preparation," said head coach Mike McCarthy. "We weren't quick to the first punch, and I thought that they finished better than we did." So those are two of the biggest constants throughout the evaluation process today with the players. We need to learn from it. Now, let me just stop you right there, Mike McCarthy, because every single time that the camera panned to you on the sideline, you looked confused, and you looked like you did not know what was going on. So I don't know if it was a you problem, I don't know if it was a Mike Zimmer problem, but you got to figure some things out too as well before you go ahead and call out the players. Let's move on. It's never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it's now, Mike McCarthy said of his evaluation after the first 2 weeks of the 2024 season. It was not good. I'm not saying that it was, but I stood here 7 days ago on a Monday and said we got a lot of work to do, having won by 3 scores in Cleveland, and that wasn't lip service. We have a lot of work to do. We looked like a young, inexperienced football team at times, and that was my first impression when I finished watching all 3 phases last night. So then, after going through all that, all the eval with everybody, we need to be better. Now, I would like to see Mike McCarthy take a bit of accountability here. He sort of is, but he sort of isn't as well. Like, yeah, we need to be better, but you need to be better. Some of the players may be inexperienced, but you've been a lifer, Mike McCarthy. You've been around this league for a very long time, so you should know some things that maybe these players don't, and you could embark some of that wisdom on them, but it was anything but that on Sunday. You looked confused. Mike Zimmer looked lost out there. There were no adjustments made by the coaching staff, and maybe you're overmatched. Maybe your defensive unit just isn't good enough, and you got lucky coming up against the Cleveland Browns, who are garbage offensively. Maybe that was the case. Maybe you fooled me after the first game of the season, and I expected this year to be different. And maybe I'm already wrong 2 weeks into the season. That's an entire possibility as well. But Mike McCarthy calling out his players right here does not sit right with me, because you got to be better. You need to be better if you're Mike McCarthy. Enough with deflecting the blame and pinning it on other people, on the players, whatever. You can, I mean, yeah, come on, man. Figure it out. You got to be better also. Stop with this deflecting crap. Our young guys, they made some mistakes, he said. And this is the part of the quote that I just could not stand. Unfortunately, at times, they were costly, but that's part of playing young players. This many young players, really. I'm calling on the veterans to help pull us through those moments. An equally daunting test is en route to AT&T Stadium by the way of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the Baltimore Ravens. Sorry, this is not baseball. So, yeah, it is going to be a very daunting task, and we take a look at the Ravens. They've started 0-2. They lost to the Las Vegas Raiders last week, a game that they definitely shouldn't have lost. So they're going to be pissed off heading into week 3, and they're going to do whatever they can to go ahead and win that game, or else their playoff chances are already looking pretty bleak heading into week 4. So it's going to be a tough test. And then the last part of that quote is, "I'm disappointed like everybody else," said McCarthy. "It was our first home game, and we had some momentum coming out on week 1. You always want to improve. At the end of the day, the results it's the ride. It's the competition, and that's what counts. It's the process." It's the process. It's the process. Those are the words of Mike McCarthy. There clearly wasn't much process going on in those gears of yours on the sideline while you were getting pummeled by the New Orleans Saints. Take a look at those stat lines right there. 190 rushing yards. They were running it down your throat, and you did nothing to stop it. So miss me with this garbage. It's the process. Why don't you process some new playbooks and some new schemes to try and combat this? Because this has been going on for 2 years now, where every single time the Cowboys come up against a dynamic run game, a dynamic offense, they get shelled. And their defense looks great. The turnovers look great when they're facing garbage quarterbacks and garbage running backs and receiver rooms with no weapons. But when you come up against Alvin Kamara and company and he rushes for 4 touchdowns or scores 4 touchdowns, I think you're to blame a little bit. So McCarthy can call out the players as much as he wants. But for you to give up 6 touchdowns in your first 6 possessions, that's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable from a player perspective, from a coaching perspective, from a front office perspective. The Cowboys need to be better in all facets of the game. Coaching-wise, personnel-wise, front office-wise. It's not good enough, and they're failing the fans again. It's only week 2. I'm not going to get too high or too low. But man, was that disappointing to watch, and it had the same feeling of that Green Bay game where you lost at home in the playoffs and gave up 48 points. It had that same exact feel to it. Pathetic performance, pitiful performance, and pitiful post-game comments by Mike McCarthy. There's no other way to put it. He is calling out his players when he should be taking accountability. He says he doesn't want to overreact after 2 weeks. There's still a lot of work to do, but he was pretty quick to pull the trigger on those players of his. Figure it out, man. Figure it out. That's all I got to say. Disappointing. You got to regroup. You got to find a way to regroup, and you got to beat a very hungry Baltimore Ravens team on Sunday. End of story. There's no option here. You got to win at home. Even though they're probably a better team than you, talent-wise and scheme-wise, they're better than you. We know that. But you got to put up or shut up at this point. And Mike McCarthy surely didn't shut up after that game. He was pretty quick to call out his players. And I'm calling him out right now. Figure it out, Mike McCarthy. You got a week to do it. If those guys don't come out guns blazing on Sunday, his job might be on the line. That's all I'm going to say. So miss me with this. It's the process. Process this, Mike McCarthy. You just got shelled at home, and you got a chance to redeem yourself on Sunday. Go ahead and do that. That'll wrap it up for this episode of Cowboys Digest. Thank you guys so much for making it this far. Really appreciate the support. So make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because 85% of you who are watching these videos are not subscribed. But that'll wrap it up, and I will see you guys tomorrow.